Welcome everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call. It is January 17th, 2023. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a Principal Product Manager in the Microsoft 365 Platform areas and hosting a lot of these calls as well. Now today we'll do a typical recap of all of the different assets which we have available, because we always have a lot of new people in these calls, and quite often what we see in the chat is that people are even asking more, that can we repeat the URL? And that's because there are people who need to know what are the assets which are available. And we also go through the latest news across the Microsoft products, and then we'll do a group picture with Together mode in Teams. We'll capture that as a video and process that as a GIF animation. Then after that, roughly 15 past, David Rousset is the real star of today, or one of them, and he's going to show building Metaverse experiences using Teams LiveShare SDK, and that's a really interesting topic, and I've seen some teasers on that video, and it looks really, really awesome. And then I'm going to do the quick intros, and then AC and Connell from Voitanos is going to actually show you an additional exercise related on building ACE experiences for Microsoft Viva Connection or Viva Home. We'll cover that a bit more detailed. Viva Home, by the way, starts rolling out to targeted release today. So that's a good teaser to know. And I will explain in the intro of that section what on earth is Viva Home and what does it actually mean for you as well. Now, we do have quite a different set of assets available for you to get started on Microsoft 365 development. First of all of our videos, recordings, guidance videos around Microsoft 365 development, and actually a lot of Power Platform development as well, is in the Microsoft 365 Community Videos channel at AKM's M365 Videos. We do have a lot of open source assets available in multiple different locations, but as it might be difficult to find the relevant sample for you, we actually have really awesome sample galleries, and these are really intended to make it easy to find the relevant sample for you. So rather than expecting you to find the relevant GitHub sample from the thousands and thousands of GitHub repos which we have, we actually surface those samples and sample metadata in one centralized location. The centralized location being AKM's M365 Samples, from where you can, from one location, find the relevant sample for you. And if you're wondering that there's too many URLs to remember, luckily there's only one, which is AKM's M365 Community, from where you'll find all of the assets, all of the guidance, all of the steps to get started on Microsoft 365. Now, we do have quite a few different community calls available. So this is the Tuesday one, which is every single Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time happens. And we have primarily Microsoft presenters on this one, or occasionally somebody who's helping Microsoft employees on delivering content, like today, Andrew Connell in Voitanos is joining on the call as well. We do have also 3 different monthly community calls, which are Identity Platform community call happening this week as well on Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. We also have the Office Admin community call, Power Platform community call happening this week as well at 8 a.m. Wednesday. So you want to probably download that as well. And then we have the Thursday series, which is happening every single Thursday, which is either the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call or the Viva Connection and SharePoint community calls. And those Thursday series are mainly community demos, which is a great way of learning the art of possible. Now, coming back on that one, you might be wondering, community demos. Well, I built something cool. How would I actually get a opportunity of presenting that? We actually give you that opportunity. So you can participate on the community actions in multiple different ways. You can actually request a spot in our community calls, and this is a great way of getting visibility for yourself as well. So if you're wondering on, there are these MVPs, and I always want to be a Microsoft MVP. One of the easiest way to get acknowledged on being an MVP or getting potentially MVP in the future is to do community call demos within our official worldwide community calls. And you can easily sign up or suggest a demo using AKM's community request a demo. So that's a URL for that one. From there, depending on what kind of demo you're looking into doing, then we'll get you scheduled on the Microsoft 365 demos or Viva Connection demos or Power Platform demos or whatever is the suitable demo call for you. So please take advantage of that opportunity. Great way of getting exposure. You can also contribute in GitHub, and most importantly, please provide us feedback. So whatever works, what doesn't work, let us know. We are here to build experiences for you. So we need to understand what works and, more importantly, even what doesn't work. But the positive feedback is always good as well. Now, if you're wondering on how would I get started on Microsoft 365 development, two main assets, developer program, sign up for there to get a free E5 developer tenant. And the second really important asset is our Microsoft 365 learning modules and learning paths. So there's like 100 modules available for you to take advantage. And those modules are in a nice series format. And as you sign into the learning platform, it will actually tell you all of the modules you already executed or went through and the modules which it recommends you to go forward in the future. We also have two different podcasts and video blogs, which are available for you to take advantage. The developer blog hosted by Jeremy Fake and Paul Schaffelin, and quite occasionally Aisha Pash, and then our PnP Weekly episode, which is happening in every single week, hosted by yours truly and Waldec Mastercards. Now, I mentioned the sample galleries a bit already, updated picture here, just to explain what's available. We have 1,460 samples available from this one centralized location provided by Microsoft engineering people or by the community. So we want to make sure that you as a community member can easily find a starting point for your sample. Or if you're looking into, I have this problem, maybe somebody has implemented something similar at some point, can I find something relevant code to get a peek on or get myself unblocked? That's what this sample gallery is all about. And we can see thousands and thousands of views already in this gallery. And we're adding all the day, every single day, all the new samples to be available for you to take advantage. Now, after you find the sample, you might be wondering that, okay, now I'm in GitHub, and how would I actually get started with that sample? We actually got you covered, and I will let David Warner to cover that one as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Vesa. Well, friends, many of you are new to these calls all the time, so we just want to let you know that there is guidance, as Vesa had mentioned. You may be finding these samples and want to use them, not quite sure how to navigate that GitHub landscape, and then you create something amazing and you want to share it back, and again, GitHub gets in the way. Well, we are going to take care of that for you with these live hands-on sessions. Now, these are different because we are going to work together. It's not just a session you come in, read some docs, and go off on your own to try to figure it out. We're going to do all of that together. You're going to submit your first pull requests, submit samples, understand the landscape. It's safe space. That means you can ask any and all questions that you want without the worry of it being recorded. And so you are going to get involved in the community in so many ways, and we're here to help you. Free to ask any questions, work alongside members of Microsoft, MVPs, other members of the community, and work on amazing stuff together that we're all passionate about. So don't hesitate to sign up. We've got Writing for the Web next week. We're resetting some of our sessions in early February as well, so keep an eye on that. And of course, once we all get involved, we know that heartbeat starts beating, and we'd love that everybody gets so passionate and involved. So free to join any and all these sessions. Don't hesitate. aka.ms/sharing is caring. Vesa, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you for that one. Thank you, David. Last week, we had the first-time contributor session, and there was a lot of great feedback again on that particular execution. So thank you, David, and the team for organizing this. Now, on the latest news from Microsoft side, we had one new blog post in the developer blog, or Microsoft 365 developer blog, which was about learn how to create adaptive card ACE extensions for Microsoft Viva Connections and Viva Home. And this is basically an introduction blog post for the series which we will go through within this week and last week and the upcoming week. And as mentioned, the Viva connection might be something that you're already familiar. Viva Home actually starts rolling out to targeted release tenants today. So we will start seeing the Viva Home experiences available in some of the experiences, which is really, really cool. Now, there was also other blog posts available. So first of all, there was Modern Work Superheroes January newsletter and latest news on that community. There was a Fast Friday with Jeff Teeper, the IntraZone podcast, and that's a really interesting story where Jeff Teeper, who's the president of Apps and Platform, collaborative apps and platform in Microsoft, my boss as well, who's talking about his interesting Fast Friday updates he's doing every single Friday for our organizations. It's great, actually, insights what Jeff is always recapping what is happening with the week and what is the important things for the 5,000 employees who are reporting to him on a weekly basis. Now, there was also 2 blog posts from the Viva blog site, which was Make Your Goals on Reality with OKRs and new capabilities in Viva Goals. And that's a great introduction on the Viva Goals capabilities, and then updates on the Viva Learning features and what's coming up on that side. Now, that's a pretty fast intro, but before we go to the actual stars of the day, let's do a quick group photo with the together mode with those who are willing to enable the camera. And let's wait for a while. Team still Teams, you can do it. You can do it. There we go. Let's do another picture today. Let's do that one. So we'll flip that one. And let's wait for, we have 50 seats in the room. Yes, I am recording. Okay, so that's fine. And we're not yet recording. Let's wait for a while. I can see a lot of familiar faces already in the room. Not yet. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. I think that is maxing out the room. Is it? I guess it is. Let's do some recording. 3, 2, 1, and let's wave some hands. Thanks to everybody for joining once again on this community call. Thank you for being part of us, and please keep the feedback coming on the chats and in the community and other channels as well. Thanks everybody. Awesome. We'll grab a GIF animation out of that. And then let's actually go to the actual stars of the day. So we'll start with David Rousset, and we're going to see a building a metaverse experiences using Microsoft Teams LiveShare, and then we'll go to the ACE introduction module, where building experiences there as well with Andrew Connell and yours truly. But David, I guess we'll jump on your screen and continue from there.
Thanks a lot. Let me share my screen, so you should be able to see it.
Yep.
Small deck before jumping into the code. So I would like to introduce you the Microsoft LiveShare SDK, the Teams LiveShare SDK, and something I really enjoy playing with. So I spent a bit of time during last of December hacking because it was quiet in the US because of the holidays, and I wanted to play with this SDK for a long time because it's been announced at Build. So normally I'm working on the Teams toolkit. So I don't know if you're aware of this extension for VS Code or Visual Studio to let you build application for Teams, and also more than Teams now for Outlook and Office.com in a very easy way. So if you've got questions, feedback, feel free to contact me also. But today, let's deep dive in a little bit into what you can do with the Team LiveShare SDK. So it's being announced at Build in preview by Satya during the keynote. If it's in preview, it means that you enable it. You need to enable the developer mode of Teams to be able to have access to that. What you've got in the box is something really interesting to build collaborative experience inside a meeting like this one. So I'm going to try to load the experience at the end, but it will be a test because it will only work with people having the developer preview mode enabled in Teams, and I've never tested with so much people. So before I will do some local tests with you, but what you can do is really have access to an infrastructure being provided by Teams, which means that it's going to be secure and compliance by default. So you don't have any backend to manage. It's going to use the Fluid framework. So if you don't know the Fluid framework, it's kind of an abstraction on top of WebSocket to do real-time communication on the web. And this is, for instance, something used in the loop component. So maybe you already use some loop component when in real time you can live edit with other colleagues, a part of your component somewhere in Teams, Outlook, or anywhere. So it's using Socket for that. So it's using this Fluid framework and add another abstraction layer dedicated for Teams. So it means that you will have access to the context of Teams, for instance, and it's very low friction development because I'm not a huge backend developer. I prefer spending my time on the front end, and I've been writing, a 3D engine in the past named Babylon.js. That's why I'm a huge lover of front-end development. And this was a perfect fit for me. Like the LiveShare SDK was taking care of the backend, the socket, the secure and compliant stuff is going to be scalable. And I just have to focus on the client code. So it also provides other type of service. Like you can see in the screenshot, you have like kind of a surface, a specific canvas to draw on it in a collaborative way, like you can see on the screenshot with a picture of the various people participating to that. So this is what you've got in a nutshell for LiveShare SDK. Is really a SDK for you working on the client side, but it's going to take care of all the complexity of the backend to get the states synchronized. So it's low friction dev because you have a SDK either for JavaScript or TypeScript. It's very fast to be integrated. The solution I'm going to demonstrate you, I was able to build it in 2-3 days, and mainly it was because I was discovering the platform, reading the doc, reading the samples, trying to understand really how it was working. The great news is, once again, the backend is managed by Teams, and by default, you have access to a free Azure Fluid relay when you're running inside Teams. And then you have a local browser testing, which is super convenient. We're going to see that together when you're spending your time testing on your local machine. So, explain what it does, but before that, I'm going to start the experience to explain you what I had in mind using this specific new SDK. Once again, using sockets in a way for doing real-time communication. So you see that it's going to open my browser. So it's going to now load a 3D scene, which is using Babylon.js, which is an 3D engine I've been co-writing with a friend of mine, and now is being the official 3D engine of Microsoft. I can move inside the scene, as you can see. And now I can, for instance, load another session to simulate another user. And I'm going to split that in two. And you see that now I'm able to see the update position of my new user. I've got a fake name and a fake avatar on top of it. And I can move where I want inside the apartment. And on the other side, I can follow my friend. And you see, we're going to be in a Teams meeting, so we're going to be able to discuss. And I will be able to see, for instance, that Rockmain31 is looking at a specific part of the kitchen. So maybe if I'm like the reseller of his apartment, I can ask to my customer, are you currently looking at this part of the kitchen? Do you have specific question? Are you worried about that? And you see, you can already have this kind of collaboration experience together. I'm also supporting various type of things. So if I'm changing, for instance, the scene from this apartment to a museum, I'm moving here, really working for now inside my local machine. You know, it's a simulator environment that's being provided by the SDK. And of course, if I like now to put that inside Teams, I need to package that as a Teams app. So if you don't know how it works, a Teams app is a web app, but with a specific manifest. In this manifest, you're going to describe permission you like to have access to. In this case, I need to have specific before trying at the end of this session, the experience in this current meeting, I've deployed it on my own tenant, so it should be visible there. So I'm going to close this one. So I'm currently using my dev tenant. So it's like Teams inside Teams, like it's meta Teams, which is right into the topic of this metaverse. And you see that I have this new button. So the way to install it is to go to Manage App, upload my custom package, and then I have this new metaverse app. Museum, but I've got other one available. And I've got my Mac on my left, like you can see, this is the webcam of my Macintosh, and another session, also another user connected there. I'm going to click Share to Stage, and it's going to load the experience on my machine, but also it's going to automatically load the experience on all machine and all the people being connected. And this side, I've got the same experience inside Teams. You see that Adele is, I'm Adele too, so Adele is me, but on my Macintosh. So if I'm moving there, you can see that user. So I've tested on 5 or 6 users. It's working well because it's using low latency network and available directly inside Teams. And I've got various scenes available. For instance, I've got this one that can be fun to test. The concept is really, let's try to visit together an environment and potentially also we could add some drawing on top of it to, for instance, say like, oh, this DeLorean need to be fixed. I see a specific issue there. You can really comment together what's currently going on. So let's go into the source code now to understand how it works. So I took one of the sample of the LiveShare SDK. You got great many different samples. One of it is named Dice Roller, which is a very simple sample that just show you how to update states between the various connected users. So I took this one as a starting base. And the way it works is you have to obviously reference the specific SDK coming from the Live SDK. You have this specific namespace that is available to have the local testing, like we've been able to do at the beginning of the demonstration, and then other type of structure that you need to read the documentation to better understand how it works. Obviously, I'm building an app for a Teams meeting, so I'm using also the Team.js SDK. And then I'm going to define the data structure I would like to use. In my case, I wanted to use the live presence after being discussing with someone from the team, which is good enough in my case to support my scenario. So let's see that together. Defining a couple of variables. I've got the local user, an array on every machines to maintain who are the current user being connected and who is going to leave also the session, because if you leave, I will be able to destroy the object to clean the 3D scene in a way. So be able to have this dynamic in and out participation. And also when we're going to start the experience, so really some code taken from the sample, I'm going to get access to the search parameter to find if there is a scene. So is it the museum? Is it the apartment? To prepare the type of content I would like to share. Then I'm going to check if I'm currently running inside Teams. If I'm not running inside Teams, it means that I'm running inside my local simulator. And then I'm going to prepare some fake data to simulate fake user in this case. I'm going to initialize the Teams app context. I will have access to the context. So inside the context, I will have, for instance, access to the nickname, the email address of the user. That could then be convenient to do a call to the graph to have access, for instance, to the profile picture. So I haven't done that yet in the sample because I was lazy, but it would be then easy to set up SSO and do a graph call to retrieve like the profile picture thanks to that. And if we are not in Teams, so it means that we're currently loading the experience locally on your machine, I'm creating a fake context and a fake user just for the testing. You know, I have those weird names at the beginning. So it's really this part, like either I am in production in a way or on my local machine. Same here, I'm using one of the functions that was provided by the poker sample, the agile poker sample to create random names. So I just took this JavaScript that's going to generate random number, random name, and a random picture in my case. So, and if I've got a real user, like I've just shown you before, I will have access directly to the user principal name. Now, the next part, you see that I was able to have either some content shared in my main stage, so it's named stage, or I have the sidebar on the right that named content. And if the first time you also, no, it's config, and the first time you can run it, you have also another page you can customize. In my case, I only shown you the stage page, but you will be able to test later on because I'm going to share the sample, the other screen if you like to. And then the join container is really the magic being done by the LiveShare SDK, meaning that in this part, we're going to check, are we currently in Teams? If we are in Teams, we're going to ask to Teams to create all the infrastructure logic for us to create the connection to the server, to put in place the WebSocket infrastructure with one line of code, basically. And if we are not in Teams, like meaning we are currently on the local machine, it's going to create a kind of a simulator environment for us to be able to test that locally. So it's going to be transparent. And then once it's being done, we are creating our local client, and we're going to try to join providing some specific container schema. In my case, it's this live presence object. I hope you're still there. Now that I've done that, it's very easy to manage the updates. So the updates, obviously, you have a lot of 3D code. So I'm creating the avatar body, which was, my cone and my cube on top of it. So nothing very interesting. The label on top of my avatar. And the main code is there. Update avatar position and rotation. So you've seen that I was able to rotate the cube to see where I was looking at. So the way I'm doing that is I will be called by a specific event that is there. This object is coming from the LiveShare SDK, and it's going to say, like, when you're going to receive a new event, like something has changed, first I'm going to check that I'm not the local, this is not me that is sending the update. I'm not interested into update, I'm sending myself. If it's a new user, I'm going to add this user into my collection, and I'm going to create a local object in my 3D scene for that, and I'm going to store that. Otherwise, if it's already there in my scene, it means that I need to move it in my scene. So I'm going to call this specific function. And this specific function, what it does, it's basically going to do an animation from one position to another one. And I'm going to compensate also the potential missing frame by doing some interpolation of the various. I'm not going to send every 60 milliseconds a new update, but every 100 milliseconds. So I need to compute the intermediate states. So you see, outside of the Babylon.js code and 3D code, I only needed to use the presence on object. And also, obviously, I need to initialize this object at the beginning. And then the LiveShare SDK really is going to manage for me the various updates. So let me summarize. I had to create the join container with a specific schema. Then I have access to an object named live presence. And on this object, what I just need to do is to initialize it. It will be my local user. And I will have an event saying like, okay, something has changed, like a new user joined or a user decided to leave the session. I have an event, and then I need to do my update logics. And then it's going to provide me the data that has changed between all sessions. And the way I'm going to update my position when I'm moving my camera, it's over there. This specific Babylon.js function this time is being sent every time we've moved our position or we've done a rotation change. So I know that if I move inside the scene, I need to say to the LiveShare SDK, okay, I've just changed my position, but I'm using the update presence in this case of the SDK. And I'm going to say like, I'm still online, but this is my new position, my new rotation. And this is the picture I would like to use to display it in the other machine 3D rendering. So pretty simple code. You will be able to have access to it on my repo. Before trying to do that live with you, maybe we'll be lucky. You need to start with, if you need to start with LiveShare, you need to update your manifest like we've seen. You need to add the specific, package from the LiveShare SDK for your JavaScript or TypeScript application. Initialize the SDK, define the object you like to have in your schema, and then once you join, you need to use the right object and just send the event to say like, this is a new state, and do whatever you like to do with it. The sample will be available on my GitHub just after the call on github.com/DaveRouse and Metaverse LiveShare. So I will communicate that on my social network. And if we've got time and if we would like to take some risk, let's try to load the app. I have no guarantee it's going to work.
This is interesting. How we got to crash the whole team. So let's see.
No, it shouldn't.
We do have another demo, so
it shouldn't crash. But you see that I'm going to add the application in these teams. So you see, normally you should see a new icon being available there. And if some of you got the Teams developer preview enabled, you should be able to see something being shared on your on your screen. So first a black screen, and then you should see the Babylon.js logo. So if you can share in the chat how many people have something loading. Oh, I see a couple of people loading. I never tried on with so many people. So the way to move inside is with the mouse and the arrow keys. So I see a bunch of people connecting, and now I can see your update position, and it stopped. Okay. So we've been able to show a bit of it for a couple of seconds. But it was what I wanted to show you. It was just a test, and I think we managed to see it for a couple of seconds. So thanks a lot. You will have access to the sample. Feel free to give feedback. The team is interested into testing more the app. I'm going to remove the app to be sure that I'm not breaking the rest of the session.
Excellent. I did grab some screenshots from my screen. It was working for me, so we can actually put it in the video recording as well. So we can see me Montanes is walking around on the room, so we can now all see. This is actually really cool. So not sure who is me Montanes, but this seems to be working for some. Excellent. Yep. Thank you, David. Really, really cool and really advanced scenario. Awesome stuff. So absolutely brilliant. Cool. Let's go a bit, let's say a more standard mode. So I want to do a few slides on introducing a few things and just the concept. And this is a recap from last week. But ACE is going to then do a live demo on creating an SPFx Image Card ACE and displaying an image carousel. But as the attendees on this call might be wondering, what is an SPFx and what is an ACE? Let's do a quick recap on those things. So ACE is an extensibility model for Microsoft Viva Connection and Microsoft Viva Home. Now, ACEs might actually be supported in the future in other Viva modules as well, but I cannot provide any additional details on that or any timelines. So there's a ongoing possibility of that. ACE means Adaptive Card Extension. It is a SharePoint Framework component, and SharePoint Framework behind the scene is basically responsible of making that adaptive card dynamic. So SharePoint Framework is the orchestrator, hitting the API, getting the API and the information from APIs, and then bypassing that information to adaptive card, and that makes it adaptive card extension. So we're using adaptive cards, we're using Graph, we're using REST APIs. We do have a new Learn module I've made up. English is hard. We do have a new Learn module available at AKMS Viva ACE Learn, and that's basically 1 hour and 56 minutes, if I remember correctly, or 52, on learning how to get started on creating this. What's cool about this one also is that we are rolling out new features, as mentioned. First of all, SharePoint Framework, you probably might have heard about that one already. It's been available for a while. You can use it to build extensibility for numerous different capabilities in Microsoft 365, and the applications are automatically hosted. So it makes it super easy for you to actually implement extensibility, which are then hitting the APIs in, for example, in Microsoft Graph or potentially somewhere else. Now, starting today, we are rolling out the Microsoft Viva Home experience, which is the one which you can see on the left side. And that's starting to roll out today to targeted release tenants. So not in the normal production tenants, but to those tenants where the targeted release switch has been enabled in the organizational level. And that means that the Viva connection experience is a bit kind of getting adjusted. If you want, there will be settings and configuration options of how to control this experience. The right side is more the traditional Viva Connection experience, which also had exactly the same mobile experience, but the desktop experience looks a bit different. But you can see those ACEs as in the cards in the background, and you can use those cards also inside of a SharePoint. So you don't have to be inside of a Teams or inside of Viva Connection. Those cards can be used inside of a SharePoint portals as well. But to continue our series on how do we build those ACEs, ACE is going to actually show us how to create an SPFx Image Card ACE displaying an image carousel. And let's jump on ACE's screen to see that one in practice. AC, take it away.
Thank you very much. Let me double check. Let's see. All right, so you should be able to see big purple slide. Yes?
Yep, I can see that. Take it away.
Cool. Purple slide, no flickering, so success. All right, so thanks a lot for joining us, joining me for this demo today. This is the second exercise, as Vesa was just referring to. This is the second hands-on lab exercise from a Microsoft Learning module. that I recently published for Microsoft under Microsoft Learning. And it's on creating adaptive card extensions with SharePoint Framework. So just real quick bio on who is doing the demo. My name is Andrew Connell. I'm a Microsoft MVP, longtime MVP, I guess, around Office development, where I focus just on primarily SharePoint Framework, but any kind of like Microsoft 365 development. And you can learn more about me and the stuff that I do from those links that you see there on the slide. But what we want to do is I want to talk a little bit more about this module. So I know Vesa just mentioned a lot of stuff about it, but this module is targeted for people who have no experience working with adaptive card extensions, so ACEs. And if you want to learn what these are, kind of how they work, my target audience for this was designed for someone who has no experience with adaptive card extensions. I do have some expectation that you know what the SharePoint framework is, and you've built a web part with the SharePoint framework, but you don't have to be an expert at that. The modules consisted of like 3 sections. Each section contains about a 10 to 15 minute lecture that includes slides, but also has it's all text-based as well. And then it also has a hands-on lab that reinforces what you just learned. It's available as a screen, both as a Microsoft Learning module, all text-based, and then you've also got access to a screencast of the module, of the entire module as well, where you can jump between the different sections and see the demos and the videos. If you want more of the, I don't know what you are, I saw someone said in the chat, you would need more of those in the Learn area. I've published like over 35 modules in Microsoft Learn, so I'm not sure what you're looking for, but we've got a lot in there. But at any rate, the one thing that the video will do is it's going to walk through creating the demo. I'm not going to do a live coding right now because this isn't an exercise in watching Andrew debug and saying that he does a bad job of fat fingering stuff. Instead, I've already got a sample that's up and running and it's working. But you can do the exact same one that I'm going to do. It's exercise 2, or the second exercise in the module. So let's get to the business time. There's our demo. Pointy end down, pointy end business side down. All right, so let me show you the one that's actually working. Let me focus on that first. And then we'll look at the code, how it's implemented. So the scenario here, I've already got it running. It's called the ACE Image Viewer. And the scenario that I've got is I wanted to build an adaptive card extension that was using the image format or the image card template to be able to display dynamic images from some external service. And so what I choose to do is to use open non-copyright data. And I thought that the best place to choose that, as everyone would obviously agree, is using one of the open APIs from NASA. And in this case, this is one that has catalogs and allows you to look at all the images that have been taken with the various Mars rovers, or rovers that are on the planet Mars. So here's the one that we've got right here. This is showing me a default image of Mars because I don't have anything selected yet. I don't have a specific image selected yet or any detail for it. So what this is going to show us an image on the right-hand side, and then on the left-hand side, it gives me a little bit of information to selecting a rover and a sol, which is the equivalent of a day that we have on Earth. A sol is a day on Mars, which is a little bit longer than what we have on Earth. And then this little button here is going to allow us to toggle but through the different images. So either going forward through the images we return or going back. So what I'm going to do is I need to be able to get this up and running and get it working. I'm going to have to go put this into edit mode. And I can specify a couple different things here. So the NASA Open API gives us the ability to do, has an API key that we can specify. I'm using the demo key, which is giving me a limit on how many times I can use it in one day based on my IP address. But you can register for free and get your own key and use it there if you want. Also have a couple different rovers we can choose from. And then I can also go ahead and put the photos in here as well. So let me go ahead and let me just plug in the number of what photos we want to pull or what day we want to pull from. Refresh the page. And there we go. Now we've got our list of the, we got some images that are coming back. And so now I can start cycling through a couple of these different images. Got to switch it over into preview mode so I can see it in display mode. And now I can start viewing all of these different images. So kind of just jumping through and looking at a couple different pictures. And the cool thing is that what I've also done is that when I select anywhere on the card, it's going to open up a quick view of the current image, give me the ID of the image, and then I'm also using a little fact table to write some additional information about the image. And to show you it's dynamic, I'll pick a different one. There's a different one. That's a widescreen one. Here's another one, a lot more rocks. I don't know if anybody else gets excited about this stuff, but it's pretty cool. There you go. Shadow of the, there we go. We got a wheel right there. These rovers are huge. If you've never seen one of these things, they're awesome. While I'm stopping the demo and switching back over to the code so we can look at that, I can tell you I got to go to the Jet Propulsion Lab out in California once and get a private tour and got to stand next to a replica Curiosity, and it's big. Those wheels are like they're bigger than what I can show on the screen. Anyway, so let's kill the demo here and let's go over to the code. All right, so let's see, how do we actually implement this stuff? This is pretty cool. It's pretty simple, actually. So the thing with ACEs that I like to look at them is that when a lot of people look at ACEs, that a lot of people think that these things are something special and unique, and they're not. They're really just, I like to think of them as just a web part, where SharePoint Framework extensions feel very different from web parts. ACEs are basically just web parts, all right? That's, I think it's a simpler way to understand that. So if we look at the root class for an ACE, let's get rid of that. Let's take a look at what we have here. So in this case, it's very similar to a React-based web part. And so what you're going to have is you're going to have a property, public properties for your component, and you're also going to have a state. Whenever the state changes, it triggers the entire card to re-render, okay? You're not going to see a page refresh or a reflow or anything like that. It's just going to re-render it and put it back on the screen. The properties, these are the public properties that you can specify on your adaptive card. It works the exact same way as a web part. These are the things that are also persisted. So this is how I'm storing like the current day that's selected, the rover that we've selected, and the API key as well. And then the state for my component or for my ACE is going to contain a number, which is the index of the array of the image in the array that we currently have selected and we're currently looking at. And then the rover photos is just going to be an array of all the photos that I get back from the extension. I'm not going to go through the details of how I get all the data and all that stuff and talk to the NASA OpenAPI service. That's in this file right here called nasaservice.ts. And that's just using a standard request to an open REST endpoint. When you're building an adaptive card, let's go full screen here. So when you're building an adaptive card, you got these things called navigators. And so what a navigator is for the different views, both card views, which is the card you see rendered on the screen, and quick views, which think of those as little pop-ups. You have to register these things ahead of time to tell the ACE rendering engine that this stuff exists. And so what I've done here is I've gone through and I've registered two things, the card view and the quick view, because you saw we only had two different things in the demo that I did. And then the next thing we're going to do is in the on init, I'm going to initialize my state to make it seem like we have nothing selected and we have no photos. I'm going to register our two cards with the rendering engine, specifically with the navigators. And then I'm going to come over here and look at the data that I've got selected in my on init, where I've got checking to see the properties. Do I have an API key set? Do I have a rover selected? Do I have the date selected that I want to pull photos from? And if I do, then I'm going to update the state. One bit of clarification there, I saw somebody put something about quick views are synonymous to modals. I wouldn't say that, because modals indicate that you're hijacking the content, they're hijacking the focus on the screen, and that's not the case. I can still keep interacting with the screen while the quick view is open. So I just say it's more like a additional like context, more like a context menu that I would say. So the other thing we have, so that's where I'm just going through and just setting the state for this. Once I grab the data and I update the state, it's going to re-render the entire screen. The only other thing that's really important here, that's interesting here, is the part where I'm checking to see an event that's going to get raised whenever I modify the property pane. That's going to say that whenever a field has changed, then I want to do something. And in this case here, I'm checking to see, did I change the rover property or the day property? And if the value has actually changed, if new value is greater than old value, and if it is, or different than old value. And if it is, then I'm going to go try and fetch some photos, because clearly something's changed and my data set could change. Okay, so the other part that we did here is you see I've got this render card, and what that's telling the SharePoint framework or the rendering engine is it's saying this is the card that you should render on the screen when you're putting it on the page. And that's going to be defined here in this card view. Now, the reason it figured that out is because when I registered it previously is I gave it an ID, which was defined up here in this constant on line 25. And then I said, just go create an instance of that card view. Where's that card view? Well, that's over here in a file called card view. So this file contains a couple different accessor methods that we can do some stuff with. All right. So first of all, when someone selects one of the buttons, clicks one of the buttons on my card, that's a submit action. And so I want to be able to do something. And you saw that when I was clicking the buttons going back and forth, I was cycling through the array of all the photos that I got back from Mars. And so in this case here, I'm checking to see, was it a submit action? No, it wasn't. Then get out of here. Otherwise, go grab the current index that we're on and simply go change the current index on the state value equal to the current index and then plus, and you'll see how I'm just using a +1 or a -1 as the ID to indicate if I want to go forward or backward. I don't have to do a check to see if I'm, clicking a next button or a previous button. The other thing I'm doing too is I am overriding the accessor method on card selected. And so that says, whenever someone clicks the actual card view, what should it do? Well, I want to launch a quick view. Which one? This one. We'll look at that in just a second. So how do I get the data applied to our card view? The way I do that is I'm checking to see, do I have a rover and a day selected? If I do, or if I do not, in this case here, I've got the exclamation point in front of them. If either one of those are empty, then I'm going to return back some default data using the image of Mars that we have from Wikipedia as a placeholder. You saw that when I first started the demo with some text here. This is pretty cool too, because under the older versions of an ACE, we didn't have the ability to set the alt text for screen readers. Now we do, so I'm using that here. Now the next thing I'm doing here is under the else statement, I clearly have a rover and a Mars rover selected. So I'm going to change the rover name to just capitalizing the first letter of the rover's name, so capital C for curiosity, and then putting the rest of it there. The image we're going to use is going to be look at the image from our rover photos from our state property and grabbing the one out for the index that's currently selected. And then I'm going to return back an object of 4 properties: my primary text, my image URL, my image alt text, and the title. Those are 4 properties that are expected on a card view for an image card. Finally, I'm also going to define the buttons here, and all this logic does, as you see, is I'm just adding in either a button if I'm at the, if I only want to return one button back, like if I'm at the very beginning of my array, or the beginning of my collection, or the end of the collection. I've got all this stuff, all these conditions kind of defined. The key thing here to notice here is that you remember how I had the buttons had those little like greater than or less than symbols. Notice I'm setting the ID equal to -1 or 1. That's how I'm cycling through my array. Okay, so now let's go back and let's take a look at the quick view. So what happens when I click the actual quick view? Let's see what happens when I click on the card view that launches the quick view to see the details of the image that I selected. All right, got it out. So first of all, JSON. There we go. So what is that? That's our adaptive card. You use the adaptive card schema, which is all done in JSON, to define how you want your card to be rendered. And in this case here, I'm using the native capability we have from the adaptive card templating, which has nothing to do with adaptive card extensions. This is part of adaptive cards. I'm using its native templating capability that we have and using their syntax, where I'm doing it's a very similar to how like template literals work with JavaScript and TypeScript, where I'm using a $sign surrounded by the mustache brackets and then putting the name of the property of the object that's being bound to my card. So remember, in my data method in either my quick view or my card view, I'm returning back an object that's got a bunch of properties assigned to it. In this case here, I have a property named image source. Same thing here. I'm writing out the title or the byline that I want coming right underneath the image. And then I've got this thing, or then there's a text block, some details about the actual photo, and then I'm posting out a fact set, which is a rendering element that we have in adaptive cards. And I'm just writing out all that stuff. So that's the template that we're going to use. If I come over and look at the actual quick view class, when this gets activated, this is what's going to tell the rendering engine where's the JSON for the adaptive card that defines the rendering for this card. And that's the JSON we were just looking at. And then what photo should we show? Well, let's go grab the photo out of our state array to go render that out. So that's pretty cool the way that works. It's pretty easy to go through and to pop that data out. One of the things too that, since I've got another minute or so here, that I want to show you, one thing that's kind of nice about this, and it's different than what we would see with web parts with respect to the SharePoint framework, but it's different, but it's, you would argue it would be nice if we had this in SharePoint framework web parts. ACEs were built from the ground up to be in a mobile first experience. So the idea is that, you know, performance is fast. You're gonna have a lot of these cards like on the screen. So in this case here, traditionally we have this get property pane configuration in a web part where it's going to return back the actual property pane. But if you're familiar with web parts, you know that you usually define it inside this method. With adaptive card extensions, it's a little different. What that's going to end up doing is that's going to instead go render out or go load up our property pane that's defined in a separate class or a separate file. Now, why does it do that? Because we have this other method here called load property pane resources. And what this does is it's using this native capability we have in Webpack. Nothing to do with SharePoint framework, nothing to do with Microsoft. This is a native Webpack capability where if you put a comment right before something that you're going to load, then Webpack will split that out into a separate bundle and will only go load that JavaScript bundle when it needs it. So it's not going to, so in other words, the way that this is set up now is that my adaptive card is never going to, my bundle, the user, so let's say that I'm the editor of the page, but all of you are consumers of the page, either on your mobile device or on the Viva Connections app on your desktop. Whenever you guys go load the page where this adaptive card is going to be rendered out, your payload that you download is not going to include anything about the property pane because you don't have the ability, your users, you don't have the ability to put the page into edit mode. So there's no need for you to go through and to download all that extra code. In our case, it's not much code, so it's not really that big of a deal, but you get the point. But for me, when I put the page into edit mode and I say, show me the property pane, that's when I'm going to see this extra bundle get downloaded on demand, because now my browser experience needs it to be able to get the property pane to do those edits. So that's pretty cool. We get this natively inside of adaptive card extensions. It doesn't exist for web parts. You could implement something like this yourself if you wanted to do this, but I don't expect that we'll see that with SharePoint Framework web parts anytime soon, just because it's a real big change to how you build web parts, and it just doesn't make sense to kind of make that change on the now that we've already got the horses have already left the barn. All of Chris Kent's horses have left the barn. So with that being said, that's everything that I wanted to end up showing here with this demo. I have another one that we'll do next week that's a much more complicated ACE that's going to show you how to use the geolocation capabilities that we have in Viva Connections, both showing location and getting a location and picking and showing the location from it as well. So we'll see that next week. It's a much bigger sample too, much bigger. So hopefully I have more time.
Yeah, we have 2 demos for next week intentionally, so we're not going to have a third one. So that will mean that we'll have the 20-25 minutes for that one as well. But excellent. Thank you, AC, on that one. And thank you, David, who had to drop from the call so that we don't get the forced application. That's what you get for testing something which we haven't verified. But just to recap again, the recording of today's session will be available within 24 hours at Microsoft 365 Community YouTube channel. Subscribe to that one today. You cannot access the recording from the chat. Every single call I do get requests of getting access to that video. I cannot give you that access because it does not work with external in the Teams chat with the links what is added there. And that's exactly why we use YouTube for getting the videos out. Follow us on Twitter, Microsoft 365 Dev and 365 PnP to also know about all of the great updates, what's happening around all of these areas. And the next Microsoft 365 platform call happens 24th of January, which will be actually quite SPFx specific call, but then on the upcoming weeks, we'll have more graph and Teams development, and ACS development series starts after that. Next week, we'll have the SharePoint Framework engineering team actually dropping in and telling what's going to happen within the first half of 2023 around SharePoint Framework and doing some live demos on potentially on bot framework-driven Viva cards, which is really, really cool as well. But more on that in our agenda, in our weekly summary as we get stuff shared out. But thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you for a active discussion in the chat. Please keep the feedback coming, and we'll be back within a week. Thanks, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.